The potential criminality of Donald Trump's attempts to influence the investigation into collusion between his campaign and Russian officials continues to grow. Previously, we told you that Donald Trump asked fired FBI Director James Comey to stop the investigation into disgraced National Security Advisor Michael Flynn. We also know that Donald Trump fired James Comey to, quote, remove some of the pressure that Donald Trump was under, as I told you yesterday. And already, as we discussed yesterday, legal expert Jeffrey Toobin said that is a potentially criminal admission to obstruction of justice. That's where we were as of yesterday, but it is leak o'clock, as often is the case every single day these days. We have now further learned that Donald Trump asked two American intelligence officials to help him push back against the FBI investigation into the collusion that is suspected to have taken place between his campaign and Russia. Donald Trump made separate appeals to both the Director of National Intelligence, Daniel Coats, and to Admiral Michael Rogers, the director of the NSA, urging them to go public and deny that there is any evidence of collusion during the 2016 election between Donald Trump and Russian officials. Now, what did Coats and Rogers do? They did the right thing. They refused to comply with Donald Trump's request, which they both determined to be inappropriate, according to two current and two former officials who spoke on the condition of anonymity. Donald Trump's conversation with Mike Rogers was documented what is called contemporaneously, which means immediately after it took place. If you remember, I guess at this point it's hard to keep track of the days, but we now are aware of the existence of this memo that James Comey wrote after Donald Trump asked him to ease off of the Michael Flynn investigation. These contemporaneous memos are considered to be both reliable and typically accurate. They are taken at the time by responsible intelligence officials. And it is unclear if there's a similar memo that was prepared by Coats. But this is really starting to go beyond possibly criminal into direct obstruction of justice.
And it's just baffling how he treats the intelligence community as if they're beneath him and subservient to him entirely, because, of course, they are somewhat quasi-independent organizations and they don't have to do whatever the president asks of them.
Sure.
Obviously, they can investigate the president. And I don't think Trump is used to that because he's used to operating businesses where he was the be-all and end-all.
Oh, yeah.
He was the last word on everything.
The buck stopped with him for everything in his life, basically, until now. Memos. We are going to, at some point, be dealing with many, many requests for memos to be released. If 2016 was the year of memes, 2017 is likely the year of memos. And I want you to understand what this is. This is not only that Donald Trump asked intelligence officials to lend him political help. Donald Trump asked members of the intelligence community to publicly release false statements. A former senior intelligence official said that the request that was made, quote, the problem wasn't so much asking them to issue statements, it was asking them to issue false statements about an ongoing investigation. And it goes even further. In addition to the requests to Coats and Rogers, senior White House officials sounded out top intelligence officials about the possibility of intervening directly with James Comey to encourage the FBI to stop investigating Michael Flynn, according to people familiar with the matter. Can we ask him to shut down the investigation? Are you able to assist in this matter? One official said of the line of questioning from the White House. This is now, unquestionably, beyond any doubt, well into Watergate territory in terms of the cover-up. Simple question. Is this how an innocent person behaves? Asking Comey to cut the investigation, firing Comey to stop the investigation, asking other intelligence officials to publicly lie about the investigation. This is not how an innocent person conducts themselves.
I think the question is, would this be considered obstruction of justice? The problem is, historically, that's usually used as a secondary or tertiary charge against the president. When it came to the Watergate scandal, it was one of 3 charges against Nixon. And with Lewinsky-gate, it was one of 2 against Bill Clinton.
Because you brought up Watergate, if you're skeptical that this is looking more and more like Watergate, let me put up on the screen for you an article that was released by the New York Times on August 9th of 1974. In a sharp setback to his fight against impeachment, President Nixon admitted today that 6 days after the Watergate burglary, He ordered a halt to the investigation of the break-in for political as well as national security reasons, and that he kept the evidence from his lawyers and supporters on the House Judiciary Committee. He made the admission in a statement accompanying the release of transcripts of 3 conversations on June 23, 1972, which he said might further damage his case against impeachment. It is virtually a foregone conclusion, the president added, that the White House would vote to impeach him, but he said he hoped the Senate would look at all the evidence in perspective and vote to acquit him. The president disclosed that he had tried to keep the FBI from pursuing an investigation of the source of the money that financed the Watergate break-in. This was widely regarded in Congress as an admission of guilt to the charge of obstructing justice, a criminal offense. And then it goes on to cite the law in which that is a criminal offense. That is sounding very similar to what we are seeing now. Prevent the FBI from investigating. Don't turn over evidence. This is no longer he said versus he said in terms of Trump versus Comey and his memos. It is now Trump said versus they said. The they is multiple heads of U.S. intelligence agencies with documentation. It is lifelong con man and notorious liar Donald Trump versus multiple heads of intelligence agencies, all telling a very coherent story. You believe who you want to, Pat.
Right. I think the connections to Watergate continue to grow, especially as we learn now that there could be tapes of conversations, that President Trump regards himself as above the law, as Nixon did. So these keep growing.
I forgot about the tapes part. I mean, I talked only about memos, but then there's this possibility of tapes, which Donald Trump alluded to on Twitter. It's getting bad, folks. It's getting bad. I still get very few now, but every once in a while, I still get an email from someone saying, David, there is no Trump-Russia thing. There's just nothing to look into. It's happening way less frequently than it was a month ago.
I'm sure there are people who say that the Russia scandal is distracting from more important issues, but I think that's an entirely different point.
Yeah, I mean, when are we going to reopen that investigation into Hillary's emails and Obama's tan suit? That's really what we should be focusing on here. Send me your thoughts. I'm on Twitter at @Pakman.